Again, live signal on SD1, source WTOC.
Countywide beginning this evening from dusk to dawn, which will be enforced by law enforcement.
Attention stations, Edge Live Channel 1. I'm going to step away from this bump shot of St. Augustine, Florida. I'm going to take you down to the State Department, Washington, D.C. Secretary of State John Kerry and the French Foreign Minister having a quick press conference. Sources Pool, Edge Live Channel 1. Again, Secretary of State John Kerry, the French Foreign Minister having a press conference.
Thank you.
I'd like to call up Van Johnson. He's an alderman from the 1st District of Savannah.
Good morning. I'm still riding the city, and there's still a significant amount of people who are still here. This is serious. We are living through historic times. We are living through history. Please do not become a part of it.
Thank you, Van. And Jack Lumpkin, he's the chief of the Savannah-Chatham Metropolitan Police Department.
Thank you. I would also like to express our appreciation to our partners, some of you who you see behind us, our citizen soldiers, our National Guard, and the Sheriff who has deployed officers or deputies significantly in the east and the west areas of our community. We are asking that our citizens leave, as everyone has stated. The dusk to dawn curfew will be enforced. That is not a juvenile curfew. It's for everyone. Dusk to dawn, we will be engaging people and arresting them for this curfew violation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. We'd like to open it up to any questions then. Anyone? If there are no questions, the next briefing is scheduled for 4:30 p.m. at SEMA headquarters on Police Memorial Drive. That could be subject to change depending on conditions, so please stay alert. Thank you very much for coming.
if we check the rat room, remember how the other day it went really high? The audio
Attention station, Judge Live Channel 2, stepping away from the area of Obama, meeting with FEMA Administrator Craig Fugate in the Oval Office. Again, tape playback, President Obama, FEMA Administrator Craig Fugate, meeting in the Oval Office. This is tape playback, Edge Live Channel 2.
Affiliates speeding down on SD3. We have tape material of President Obama making comments on Hurricane Matthew. Again, tape material on SD3 of President Obama's remarks on Hurricane Matthew. Source on this is Pool. Affiliates Mike Pence is now speaking on SD4 live signal from Ohio, where Mike Pence is speaking. That is coming down on SD4. Affiliates, we're going to lose the signal on SD1 for a moment. Stand by.
go over to the coastline. This is southern Fort Pierce. There's downtown Fort Pierce. Zoom in here real quick while we go over to the coastline. Because the major thing we want to really look at, knowing that we don't have any high damage areas inland. I'm not saying that that's not happening, but we're not getting any reports of houses being demolished or roofs being torn off. I'm not saying that there isn't a few, one or two, but again, during hurricane status, during hurricanes, that is what you go see. You go see where a house was. You go see parts of a house. You go see roofs ripped off. We're not seeing any of that now, and that is a very good thing. This is the southern part of Fort Pierce. Zoom in here real quick, see how the coastal. Here we go. Here's a little bit of some storm surge, a little bit of a higher tide here. As you can see it washing up. So I guarantee you through the storm, they had it probably a little bit higher than what you're seeing now. But again, the seawall is intact. The boats are still there. Francis and Jean, these boats would not be there. And you'd have sand and some of the seawalls would be damaged. Good sight there, good sight. All right, Fort Pierce Inlet. We're looking at the Fort Pierce Inlet. Let's see how the beaches did here in this area. You can see the outflow too of the inlet. Just, the sandy, the murky water. That's from a lot of sand, a lot of beach erosion sand that comes off the beach, gets put back into the ocean. But a good outflow of the inlet. I'll show you that real quick. Show you what it looks like towards the east. And we're not seeing any heavy, major swells. That's one thing that's a little odd to me. I thought we'd have a little bit of a bigger swell coming through. Still a strong swell, but I'm not seeing any type of swell. Maybe 2 to 4 feet swell so far. But this is south part of Fort Pierce, boarded up, looking good. Now, right here is something. Look at the awning. It's not ripped. It's still intact. That's a good sign. Look at that. And a good job boarding up, getting ready for the storm. Excellent. Zoom over here. They're already taking theirs off. Yeah, I mean, look at the palm trees. I mean, it's windy. It's tough. I mean, we're getting bounced around up here. All right. I see a blue tile roof here. Good eyes, Josh. Good eyes. Let's check this out. See a little bit from afar, but looking good. Looking good. As you can see now, you can see the different colors of tiles. That's from past damage. That's from a past storm. All the tiles are in place. Those different colored tiles, that's from the past. You got cracked ones there too. I mean, it's not perfect, but the roof is on. The roof is intact. The house is there. I mean, you have a roof. Good signs as we travel Fort Pierce. Now we're going to travel a little bit more north. Let's head up north to the northern part. We're going from Port St. Lucie now. We'll be traveling into the Indian River area. Port St. Lucie turns into Indian River County. So far, I'm just very pleased that what we're seeing here is not catastrophic damage. Not only inland, but along our shoreline. This was a monster off our shoreline. A huge, incredible storm churning off our shores. And this is the only beach erosion you're seeing. That's incredible. That's just pure incredible. I mean, I'm telling you, I've seen this all my life. I've seen it over and over. And this is a good sign. Again, count your blessings. If you're mad about putting up the shutters, or if you're mad about having no power, you have a house, you have your health, and the power will come back on. The sunshine will come out. We'll be able to take our shutters off soon. But again, checking out one of these neighborhoods here along the coast. The boat's intact. Roofs are fine. I'm not seeing any tiles, any parts of the roof. Screen enclosure still intact. You will not see that if you have a direct hit. The screen enclosure is intact. don't know how to put it other than if you don't play the lottery, maybe you should, because we've gotten so lucky. And I'll tell you, we are millionaires just being able to have our houses and our beach and our boats and our docks all intact. I'm telling you, we really lucked out on this. Manufactured home area here, just a little bit north of Fort Pierce. Look at this. I mean, even on this section here, the screens are intact. The screens aren't ripped. The roof is intact. Even the golf cart's there. Great signs. Great signs. Again, we're live at Chopper 5. Joshua and myself showing you these exclusive pictures. We do it daily here, but now we're doing it in a aftermath of what could have been a catastrophic hurricane. We're going up the coastline. Here's the Harbor Branch Institute over there. Let me show you. Just the area. I'm sure they're buckled down good, but just giving you little shots of what's in the area. Harbor Branch. Not seeing any tiles or any roof damage or any type of damage there. As we continue to head north, let me get my bearings here and see where we're at. We should be, let's see, we're getting close to South Beach of Vero Beach. Indian River Beach is a little bit up north more, but we're getting close to Vero Beach. Should be, I remember right, should be just a little bit up here. Should be getting into the Vero Beach area. I'll zoom in here, check it out until we get close to give you the exact shots, but I go along the coastline. And there, this is beautiful. This is a great sight. The roadways are clear. You can drive along the roadways. I mean, if you know Cape Hatteras, they get the roads washed out. It takes them months to get the roadways back. We don't even have sand along our roadways. We don't have 3 feet of sand that's overwashed our roadways. Our roadways are open. We have houses with roofs on them, with their screens intact. The docks are fine. The boats are tied up. They're not washed away on the other side of the Intracoastal. We did see one boat that was sunk. We had one boat that sunk, possibly not tied up correctly, or just couldn't take the strength of the storm. But this is just a really good sight to see, a positive sight to see that we're seeing right now. Okay, Josh is telling me the weather, we're up in Vero Beach, and the weather you're seeing now is the back part of the storm, basically. Pretty much, not direct the eye, but this is the back part of the storm. Meaning probably this is about as far north as we'll be able to make it right now. Of course, we could have waited a few hours and showed you nice clear pictures, but you want to see it first and fast. That's what we do on Channel 5. That's what we do every morning, noon, and night. We give it to you up here in Chopper 5 like no other station does. And we will continue to do that. It's our pride and joy to give you the best information in the market for our viewers. Your viewers are our family. And to get up here a little bit extra early, we'll do that for you every time.
Attention News Source affiliates, the 11 a.m. generic out of Jacksonville, Florida is in jeopardy. Please have a backup ready for the 11 a.m. generic. It is in jeopardy. Again, News Source affiliates, please have a backup ready for the 11 a.m. generic. We're having transmission issues. Please have a backup ready for the Diane Gallagher 11 a.m. generic.
Still hurricane force winds, especially in gusts, impacting land areas, and the north side of this hurricane is pushing the ocean toward the coastline, and that is a taste of things to come farther to the north. As it continues moving in general northward motion and eventually makes a right-hand turn, you're going to have that onshore flow starting to impinge upon the Georgia coastline and eventually the Carolinas. And look at how much rainfall. And if you can't see the radar, go check your television screen or your app. Look at the radar and see how much rainfall is occurring over such a large area of central and northern Florida. The risk of inland flooding is there, and it's just a dangerous time to be on the roads. Easy to get into an accident in conditions like this, so it's a good day to be inside. Looking at the updated forecast track here as of 11 a.m. this morning, it is still a track that has a shape that is essentially the same shape as the coastline of northeastern Florida, Georgia, and South and North Carolina. The hurricane has not made landfall in the U.S. yet. It may never, but it might. So I don't want folks to be focusing so much on where the center of circulation will go. Just because it might stay just offshore doesn't mean you are off the hook. You can still get hurricane force winds, storm surge, inland flooding, even isolated tornado, regardless of the exact path of the center. But anytime the center gets closer to the coast, that just intensifies the impacts from all of the hazards. And the new forecast track has a forecast point on 8 a.m. Saturday morning that is almost right on the coast of South Carolina. And when you're talking about where the hurricane's center might be overnight tonight, dangerously close to the coast of southeastern Georgia. So Georgia and South Carolina, it's headed your way. The weather is going downhill today. And again, don't concentrate so much on whether or not landfall of the center is going to occur. The warnings are still there. Hurricane warnings all the way around from northeastern Florida to all the Georgia coastline, all the South Carolina coastline, and now creeping up into North Carolina. And then beyond that, in the Outer Banks, we have tropical storm warnings in effect. So not only are we not lowering warnings, we're adding on to them. This system is far from being done affecting the United States. We also continue to have our prototype storm surge watch and warning product, highlighting areas where life-threatening storm surge is an issue. The prototype storm surge warning now goes all the way through, not only from northeastern Florida, all the Georgia coastal areas, all through South Carolina, and into the part of North Carolina as well. So that means those areas have the danger of life-threatening storm surge, and that is the hazard. That is the primary reason why officials are being very adamant that some of you evacuate as soon as possible if you haven't done so already. So if they're telling you there's still time to go, you need to go now to save yourself from the most deadly hurricane hazard of all, the storm surge, and let's not forget the very heavy rainfall that will continue to occur in coastal regions some distance inland for days to come. We will continue to update you live from the National Hurricane Center. I'm Dr. Rick Knabb.
How big is the RMW now?
All right, Jacksonville.
Rick, if you want to plug in Jacksonville.
Okay.
Attention affiliates coming down now on HD1 and, HD2 and SD1. We have a live signal from South Carolina. Governor Nikki Haley is holding a press conference regarding Hurricane Matt on the state. Again, this is on HD2.
Got it. Thank you. Good morning. So we are, it is storm day, and so those are the things that we're going to continue to watch. I was on the phone with Governor Scott last night and told him South Carolina was praying for Florida. I was on the phone with Governor McCrory this morning as we were talking about things, and so many of the governors, whether it's Governor Haslam from Tennessee, Governor Hogan, Governor Pence, all of them have called in and offered resources and assistance, and so I want to thank everybody from that standpoint. Before we begin, I think it's important that you get the latest update that we have and the information that we all talked about this morning in our meeting, and so I'm going to turn it over to who I will say for the last time, John Quagliarello, who I will now refer to as Rockstar John.
Thank you, Governor. Well, as of 11 o'clock this morning, there is now a hurricane warning in effect for the entire coast of South Carolina, in addition to a storm surge warning in effect for the entire coast of South Carolina. Matthew is still a Category 3 hurricane with winds of 120 miles per hour, and it's currently brushing the east coast of Florida. The latest track from the National Hurricane Center has shifted a little bit closer to the South Carolina coast and a little bit farther north, closer to the Myrtle Beach area as well, so that's some cause for concern. The storm will start working up toward the South Carolina coast tonight. It's expected to move just along, potentially even making landfall somewhere along the South Carolina coast sometime during the day tomorrow, and then start moving away later tomorrow night. So given this track, we have significant concerns in terms of impacts to the state. I think one of the greatest impacts would be the threat for storm surge. Right now, we're looking at the potential for disastrous and life-threatening storm surge inundation along the coast. It's especially true for the central and southern part of the coast, down, across Charleston, down near Beaufort. In a worst-case scenario, if this storm makes landfall, storm surge inundation, so that's how high the water will get above normally dry ground, could be over 8 feet. That is a lot of water. The storm surge is not going to just be at the coast. The storm surge can extend miles inland. So it doesn't matter that you don't have a beachfront home. You could be impacted by the storm surge well inland. You need to be aware of that. In addition, we expect significant damage to coastal structures due to the combination of very high inundation, battering waves, and high tides. Some of the more vulnerable areas, we have Defusky Island, Hilton Head Island, Hunting Island, Folly Beach, Wild Dunes, Edisto Beach, even places like Daniel Island could all be impacted by the storm surge. Roads in and out of barrier islands will become impassable due to the surge. If you don't evacuate now, you will likely become stranded. In addition to the surge threat, heavy rainfall is going to be an issue. For coastal areas, as much as 8 to 14 inches of rainfall is expected, and even as you head in toward the Midlands, we still could see 3 to 6 inches of rain. Because of that, a flash flood watch is in effect, pretty much from Rock Hill down through Aiken and all points east of there. So heavy rainfall is another concern for us that could result in flash flooding. You take a place like downtown Charleston, where you have not only the storm surge coming in, and now you have that heavy rainfall, and we're looking at the potential for deadly flooding on the Charleston Peninsula. We also want to mention the threat of winds. Now with this closer track, we could see sustained hurricane-force winds along the coast. That's going to bring extensive damage to trees. We'll see some structural damage to homes. In addition, even if you live inland, the stronger winds will pose issues to trees, but also to people living in mobile homes, so please be aware of that. And given those strong winds and the likely damage that's to occur, we should expect widespread and potentially long-lasting power outages. So again, we just urge you, if you're in an evacuation zone and have not evacuated, now is the time to do so, and we please urge you to move inland if you can. Thank you.
So you've now heard what we discussed this morning, which is the storm, as we hoped it would relieve a little bit of the situation. I think we are seeing that it is getting worse, and so we are looking at major storm surges. We're looking at major winds. We are looking at wet grounds, which could be flood-like, like what we saw last year. And when you have that, you have a lot of falling trees. So there is nothing safe about what's getting ready to happen. This is the last time you will hear my voice when I am asking you to evacuate. We need everybody to consider evacuating it and really take this very seriously. I want to tell you some updates on what we've got going on. As of 9:20, Director Smith and his team closed access to the reverted roads, and so you'll start to see the lanes of I-26 return to normal around midday. They are still going to be manning the traffic points until it gets dangerous, and then at some point we're going to have to get all of our first responders and crews off the road so that they can seek shelter as well. We have 712 troopers on the road, 2,700 DOT maintenance crew members that are ready to go, thousands of guardsmen that are on the ground but also getting ready to be deployed during the search and rescue situation. The number who have evacuated as of this morning are now at 310,000, which is up from 280,000 in my report yesterday afternoon. What we want to remind people is local bus operations are still moving to shelters. So if you are not going to evacuate upstate, at least go to a shelter. At least go to those areas where we know that we can have a safe, comfortable place for you to have food and water, and that we can make sure that we've got generators and something where you will feel informed to know what's going on. Many shelters have plenty of room, so that's what we want to see, is people at least taking time to go to a shelter if they don't evacuate. The Charleston Harbor will be closed at 10 a.m. National Guard, yes, 2,000 on duty, 3,000 on standby. We are receiving, like I said, multiple resources from other states who have offered help, but also FEMA is really stepping up and making sure that we have the pre-storm supplies that we need going forward to man the shelters and do all the things that we need to do, and then they will stay through the post-storm to make sure that that goes on as well. Our barrier islands, it's the biggest concern we have right now, is the fact that we need people to move. Daniel Island, they're not moving. We need you to consider coming up north. This is the time where you can evacuate. We need you to do this. The water that's going to come in is going to be dangerous. Defusky Island, we have 100 people on Defusky, and the last ferry left out at 6 yesterday, and there were still 100 people there. We did another ferry at 10:30 this morning. We do have National Guardsmen there and DNR there with boats and helicopters to lift people out. If you know of anybody on Defusky that is staying, it is going to be underwater. So we have to get these people out, and it's very important that we spread that message. We are now in all of the areas where we are seeing could be possible really dangerous areas. We are either doing the reverse 911 calls, or we're going door to door to try and ask people to get out. This is what our law enforcement and county officials are doing as we speak, to try and get everybody to understand the seriousness of what is going on. We have 66 shelters that are open. That's one more than we had yesterday, but we have plenty more available, and there's a lot of availability in all of those shelters. We now currently have 2,882 residents in our shelters, which is up about 500 from yesterday. 674 staff members are on the ground in the shelters ready to help. We have adequate food supplies and backups as needed, so that's not going to be a concern. We just want to remind those that do go to the shelters that if you have a restricted diet, we may not be able to help you with that. So we want to make sure that you bring those appropriate things, as well as baby formula should you have to have that. As of 9 a.m. this morning, 104 medical facilities were evacuated. Beaufort Memorial will be evacuated by noon today. So again, when you see an entire hospital get evacuated, even if you were to have some health emergency, there is not going to be anyone there to help you, and that's something that we want you to think about. I want to thank especially our EMS professionals. They have transported thousands of people across the state to get them out of harm's way. And so, as we have said, again, if you see law enforcement, if you see guardsmen, if you see EMS professionals, I can't say enough about the people who have been on the ground doing the work, putting in the long hours, because they have really, they really deserve our utmost respect in that. We do have 4 open special needs facilities now, but we also have 4 more available should we need them. There are, one of the things we're proud of is that we have pet-friendly facilities, and so we want to make sure that people are using them. We told you we had 2 in the Low Country yesterday. We've opened another one in Spartanburg. If the reason you are not leaving is because of a pet, we've got plenty of space. You're not going to go in there to a cramped shelter. We have plenty of space, and want to make sure that we let you know that, animals, we want them to be safe too. There are places for you to go. Please heed those warnings, and don't let that be the reason that you don't evacuate. Hotel availability is still spotty. We now have 2 hotels in Anderson that are available. We had 4 in Columbia open up overnight since they moved the game, so there are some Columbia rooms available. We have 3 in Greenville, and so certainly just know that if you go to Expedia or Airbnb, they have opened up a lot of other rooms there in Columbia and Greenville. Please go to Expedia or Airbnb, and you can still find additional shelter resources. With that said, I want to say I can't say enough about the team behind me and those that are not here in terms of all the directors of the agencies working together, the cooperation everybody has shown. We understand the situation that is before us, and it is not a good one. This is the last time you will see me before we are actually in storm mode. So please evacuate, even if it's to a shelter. Even if you suddenly are sitting at home, we have shelters in Charleston and in every county on the coast that we can have and take care of you during this process. But we are now getting ready to see some really tough weather. We are preparing now with our utility crews, with our guardsmen and all local first responders on how we're going to do rescue relief efforts. We are prepared for more flood efforts like what we saw last year. So DNR is very much ready and positioned with boats ready to go and look at that. Everybody is already planning on what happens after this storm. I would ask you, if you are even in the Midlands areas, hunker down, stay home, stay out of this. We're going to see a lot of rain and we're going to see a lot of wind as well. So when you have that much rain, we saw a lot last year where trees come down and it becomes unsafe. So our goal is to try and make sure that we protect all the areas before people get out on the roads. And we just wish everybody Godspeed at this point. If you have any family members that have not evacuated, please call them. Family members, friends, anyone, please call them and make sure that they know that we still have bus transportation going to those shelters that can help them. So with that, I will open it up for any questions that you may have.
Governor, at what point do the law enforcement, National Guard, DOT workers who are out there stop whatever they're doing and go get shelter themselves?
So what we've planned on is as soon as it gets dangerous, as soon as it is not safe for them to be out there, they are going to go and seek shelter. Director Smith, do you want to offer anything in addition to that?
Yes, we will maintain a presence. We will be very visible. But once it gets to the point where the wind, the situations are deteriorating, that's when our officers will seek a place of refuge. And soon as the winds abate, that's when our officer will push forward to provide recovery efforts.
Where do you expect the hurricane to, I'm sorry, I'm down here.
Oh, I was looking for you. Okay.
Where do you expect the hurricane to make landfall?
Right now, the track, if Derek could call it up, takes it very close to the South Carolina coast. And as you see there, 8 a.m. Saturday, it's very near the Charleston coast. So, you know, any slight deviation in that track by a few miles could make a difference of landfall or not, and that also changes the impact. So, you know, we might get skirted with the eye wall. It might pass just offshore, but if it goes onshore, then we would expect conditions to be worse in terms of the storm surge and things like that.
Are those 100 people on the Busky Island being rescued, or what's the situation there?
We're trying to convince them to leave. I mean, they're just not leaving. And so when the last ferry left yesterday, you know, our goal is to go out and see who's out there still, who we need to know is out there. And, you know, I can't thank DNR enough and the guardsmen on the ground that are really trying to show them the importance of leaving. So we did do one more ferry today. We haven't gotten the numbers as to how many were on that ferry, but we are going to continue as long as we can to have DNR boats and National Guardsmen there on helicopters to be able to still take them out, because we want to try and do as much as we can.
When it's time for people to go back to Charleston, will you be doing a lane reversal in the opposite direction?
We are going to be planning all of that and have been talking about all of that and how we're going to do it. So we're still in logistics mode of search and rescue. So those are details that we do have, but that we're not prepared to release yet, just because we want to watch the change of the storm.
How do you think of course we all know now that the football game will be on Sunday, how do you think those 80,000 people might affect any operations to do with this?
I think that there are a lot of people who have been talking about the football game. My focus has completely been on the storm and completely been on getting people safe and whatnot. And so really I had one conversation with Coach Tanner yesterday morning, and other than that, we just have not paid attention to the football game. I mean, right now it's just very much about making sure we get people in.
You don't think it might impact?
I can let Secretary Hall talk about if any traffic conditions that may
Yes,
happen.
I mean, we'll be working with law enforcement to help make sure things are flowing. It's my understanding that there's been some coordination work that's been going on with the University Police Department. I believe that's correct, Director Smith, to try to help move things along. And of course, we'll be looking at the logistics on the reentry, as the governor mentioned. So we'll blend all that together at the appropriate time.
And, you know, the main thing is we just can't rely on any state resources for the game. That's been the main thing, is I've got to make sure that I've got them on the ground during the search and rescue time.
Governor, you said 310,000 evacuees so far. Do you know the total number of those living in evacuation zones?
We don't, that information comes from DOT because they log where they're coming from and what it is. They've got the details, and if you, I don't know if you
Yes,
have them
Governor.
on site.
We can provide a little bit of clarity into that number to you afterwards with regards to the routes and where those numbers are coming from, but tying it back to a specific address, we don't have that ability, but we can provide you kind of a regional look at the numbers.
Because I'm trying to get an idea of how many people are still on the coast that should have left.
So if you look at the number, we always averaged about 500,000 that we wanted to see evacuate. And so what we've seen is 310,000 up until now. And so, you know, that's all the information we have. That is more than half, so I'm very grateful for the 310, but I will continue to worry about the ones that have not evacuated.
Governor, you mentioned utility crews. What's being done in kind of preparation for a bunch of power outages along?
So what we may be looking at is a lot of power outages for an extended period of time. So we started 2 days ago talking with not only SC&G but our co-ops in Santee Cooper to say, okay, how can we coordinate? The biggest thing we're doing is we're coordinating the utilities with law enforcement and the National Guard so that when the utilities go to do their work to get in, they can get in safely and quickly, because that's the biggest thing is we're going to want to make sure that we can work on that. You know, obviously DOT was great last year during the flood with debris removal. We're going to try and work with the counties again to where DOT handles all of the debris removal so that that's consistent, and then we're going to make sure that there's no slowdown from the utility standpoint so that they can get to where they need to get to
Attention affiliates, coming down now on HD2 and SD1. We have a live signal from Joint Base Andrews. President Obama is departing for Chicago. Again, live full signal on HD2 and SD1 of President Obama departing, heading to Chicago.
Haiti is still trying to rebuild after that 2010 earthquake that just rocked essentially all of that area there. So if you've looked at seen some of the images that are coming out of Haiti at this moment, it really, it honestly affects you. It's hard to believe that this is what this storm did. It moved on. It moved to the Dominican Republic as well, there across the Hispaniola island. It hit Cuba and then also rocked the Bahamas as a Category 4 hurricane before coming up here. At this point now in Florida, we're looking at strong surge. We're looking at extremely high winds. Cape and Port Canaveral reporting at one point this morning more than 100-mile-per-hour winds right off of the coast areas as it kind of brushed the Port and Cape Canaveral areas. And so Matthew's coming in with a lot of force right now. So a lot of that depends on the way that the storm ends up moving. There are a couple models that are showing different options for the Carolinas and Georgia specifically, whether the hurricane itself is going to kind of turn downward and essentially give Florida a double dose, or if it's going to kind of keep going up and then out toward the east into the ocean, where it kind of at that point turns into a tropical storm and dissipates. They're still waiting to see what is going to happen. A lot of that depends on what happens here in this Jacksonville area, if it makes land, if it continues coming up the coastal areas. But they have declared states of emergency in both Florida and South Carolina as well. They've evacuated more than 1 million people at this point into further inland areas, and they are still working to make sure that people, if they decided not to evacuate out of town, are getting into shelters. Matthew is coming in some way, shape, or form. They at least are going to have flooding. So even more the bridge. Take a look at it. This is the St. Johns River. It goes right through downtown Jackson. We have about a 3-foot storm surge going on. They're nervous about the fact that when high tide comes in a couple of hours is right around the same time we think that Matthew is going to come in. You can see how quickly that water is moving right now. You could see the wind pushing it. If we have high wind like they've experienced in other parts of Florida down the coastline, you are looking at potentially walls of water being pushed into the downtown area. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
through all the storms here growing up, so this is just another one.
The massive storm moving up Florida's east coast, bringing with it heavy rain and more than 100-mile-per-hour winds.
This is still a 120-mile-an-hour storm.
Officials saying the effects of Matthew will be unlike any hurricane in decades, and that some places may become, quote, uninhabitable for weeks or months.
Damage assessments are just coming in from South Florida. They will continue as the storm passes each county. Let's remember, the storm has only passed half our state, so this is not over.
Power lines are down across the state, hundreds of thousands without power, but despite repeated calls to evacuate,
Get out if you are being told to evacuate.
and predictions of a devastating storm surge,
We are very concerned about storm surge, and the worst effects are still likely to come.
We've run the numbers. The history shows that 9 out of 10 fatalities historically in landfalling and close to landfall tropical cyclones in the United States have been due to water.
some people say they are staying put.
We're all scared. We all think that we're going to be okay, but nobody knows.
Well, I've been through all the storms here growing up, so this is just another one.